happening tonight in Vancouver.
A lot of people are also quite nervous and anxious about going back.
Demanding mandatory masks and stricter health measures at universities. What staff and student groups want to return to in September, and if the province plans further restrictions for post-secondary schools.
I have asked the clerk of the Privy Council, who is responsible for the federal public service, to look at mandatory vaccinations for federal employees.
The Prime Minister considering mandatory vaccines for federal workers.
A possible strike by Canadian border officials could bring traffic at all major border crossings to a trickle. Why thousands of border staff are preparing to walk off the job.
This is City News Everywhere.
BC's COVID case numbers continue to go in the wrong direction. We have 402 new infections over the past day and no additional deaths. Nearly half of all the active cases in the province right now are in the interior. Hospitalization rates remain relatively stable. Health Minister Adrian Dix says nearly 16,000 walk-in patients took part in the province's one-day vaccination blitz yesterday that was dubbed Walk-in Wednesday. More than 6,100 people got their first shot yesterday, but this is not the end of the vaccination push.
The effort yesterday will continue to be repeated day after day as we find different opportunities to reach people and give them the opportunity to be vaccinated. But there is that opportunity today. It's important to do, and as we see significantly cases amongst unvaccinated people in our province, the need to get vaccinated is stronger and stronger every day.
More than 2/3 of people in this province are now fully vaccinated.
I have asked the clerk of the Privy Council, who is responsible for the federal public service, to look at mandatory vaccinations for federal employees. And we're also looking at federally regulated industries to encourage or perhaps even to mandate vaccinations for those industries.
Justin Trudeau says it's time to look at making COVID vaccines mandatory for Canadian federal workers. This comes as Quebec becomes the first province to announce a vaccine passport program. Speaking in Quebec, the PM says Canadians who have gotten the shot can't be held back by those who won't.
It is time that the 80% of Canadians who are doing their duty towards their neighbors, towards their loved ones by getting vaccinated, be able to get back more and more to normal, get back more and more to regular life. For that, those who are hesitant, it's time to get your vaccine.
This comes 1 week after America made the same move, but at that time, a union representing public servants told CityNews they hadn't gotten the impression that the federal government was pushing for this. Public Health's Dr. Theresa Tam says this kind of policy decision isn't something her agency was proposing.
These kind of conversations and discussions being done at a deputy minister's level. Of course, we can provide public health guidance, but in the end, I think these are, occupational and labor type policy decisions, and these are evolving at this time. So I don't think I could comment on that further, except just to say that yes, every option is being examined.
Meanwhile, public health models forecast COVID's fourth wave could coincide with a widely expected fall election. Public health officials expressed their confidence that an election could be held safely, pointing to provinces like Newfoundland and Labrador, Saskatchewan and BC, which held elections earlier in the pandemic.
Certainly, if there's a mail-in option, people can take advantage of that. You can look at your own level of risks and and the other thing is accessibility, whether someone is able to access voting venues is important as well. So I think it's great to have an option, but in-person voting can be done safely.
In Ottawa, Shaoli Lee, City News.
We'll put in place the passport in order that people who made the efforts to be vaccinated, that they are able to come back to a normal life.
Quebec announcing a vaccine passport will soon be introduced as COVID-19 cases begin to ramp up again.
Our province's top doctor is not committing to the idea of a vaccine passport, as announced by Quebec today. Dr. Bonnie Henry says at this point, nothing is off the table.
We're looking at all options and continue to look at all options. What we have said is that we will not be denying people essential services based on their vaccination status. But I've also said very clearly that there are some services where people who work in those industries, and we think of healthcare as an essential public service, that we need to make sure that we are protecting healthcare workers, protecting the healthcare system.
Dr. Henry says she will have details on what BC's plans will look like before we move into the fall.
Maui? Disney plans to set up an animation studio in Vancouver. What that means for Hollywood North.
Lines and wait times at Canadian airports and border crossings are about to get a lot longer starting tomorrow as thousands of border staff prepare for possible strike action. It's putting at risk the smooth reopening of the border just days before Canada opens its doors to fully vaccinated Americans. The unions representing Canadian Border Service Agency workers are threatening nearly 9,000 members will work to rule if a deal isn't reached by 6 o'clock Friday morning. The possible job action is expected to slow traffic at major crossings to a trickle.
You just add little bits of time over and over and over again, and then eventually it stacks up into potentially hours of delays.
But the Prime Minister is hopeful it won't come to that.
There's mediation going on right now between the union and the federal government, the Treasury Board. We're hopeful we're going to be able to settle this at the bargaining table because the fact is, over the past number of years, we have resolved and renegotiated almost all the different public service agreements that we needed to do.
Union members have been without a contract for 3 years because the two sides have not been able to agree on better working conditions for staff due to what the union calls a toxic workplace culture. The union tells CityNews it is currently at the negotiating table with a mediator and they are prepared to work through the night. We truly hoped we wouldn't be forced to take strike action, but we've exhausted every other avenue to reach a fair contract with the government, reads a statement from the national president of the Public Service Alliance of Canada, adding the employers have been clear they aren't prepared to address critical workplace issues at CBSA at the bargaining table.
The union's concerned about salaries as well as other issues, and so the government negotiated salary increases with the RCMP recently, and rightfully, this union of border officers is now saying, what about us? It seems like both sides are digging in. I don't anticipate seeing an agreement reached before tomorrow, so definitely expect delays.
The work disruption would affect airports, land borders, commercial shipping ports, and postal facilities across the country. The union says it could have a dramatic impact on Canada's supply chain and the government's plan to welcome back visitors from the U.S. when the travel ban is finally eased on August 9th. The CBSA says in a statement it will respond quickly to any job action in order to maintain the safety and security of our border, ensure compliance with our laws, and keep the border open to legitimate travelers and goods. 90% of border workers have been deemed essential, meaning they cannot stop their work. They can, however, significantly slow it down. Border officials say they will be doing their jobs, but only to the letter of the law, meaning they can ask you extra questions and they may want to check everything, whereas before, they might have just waved you through. Karen Seolin, City News.
A lot of people are also quite nervous and anxious about going back.
More demands for mask mandates and other health measures on campuses. Student groups and unions sign on to a letter to the province, penned by the SFU Teacher Support Staff Union. It says the return to post-secondary plan released early July is outdated, and universities could be super spreaders if the BC government doesn't introduce new rules now. The Simon Fraser Student Society, University of Victoria Faculty Association Executive Committee, along with unions representing UBC, are among the groups backing the letter. They also want caps on classrooms, routine testing, and better ventilation.
So we've actually been in a lot of meetings with senior administrators at Simon Fraser University, and the response that we've been getting for months now is that they are not going to implement any measures beyond what the province has implemented in the COVID-19 guidance that was released on July 5th.
Campuses could become, and very likely could become, super spreading sites of super spreading because of these conditions. And we know that with the Delta variant, it is so easy for that to become the case.
Ventilation is especially concerning here at Simon Fraser University. Staff say some of them will be working in old buildings and cramped rooms.
There is a lot of classrooms that are in basements without windows, with poor ventilation, and so we're really worried.
UBC's student union has been pushing for masks in lectures and mandatory vaccines on residences. Its president posted this video on Twitter saying it's ready for mask rules if they're needed.
This has already occurred in the Okanagan region, which includes UBC Okanagan, because of a renewed COVID outbreak there.
There needs to be provisions for people who cannot be immunized, even though they may be a small number of people, and provisions for what we're going to do in those settings when we have increased community transmission, which is going to happen in certain communities over this next fall. So all of those things are factors that are being taken into place so that we have adequate plans.
A lot of time has been wasted when we could have been seeing those improvements.
So it's really getting close now to make sure that we can implement these measures.
SFU tells City News it's reviewing the letter and will respond in the coming days. In Burnaby, Crystal Adaris, City News.
Help is on the way for dozens of people who've been left homeless following a fire at a condo complex in Newton. The Surrey Firefighters Association and a local Sikh temple are holding donation drives. The firefighters are also collecting cash and are matching donations up to $5,000. The complex on 70A Avenue and 140th Street was destroyed in the fire, and dozens of people living there lost everything. Many of them apparently didn't have insurance. The province wants your input on a new permanent paid sick leave program that will take effect January 1st. Labour Minister Harry Bain says one of the most critical lessons learned during the pandemic was the importance of staying home when sick. That's why surveys are going out starting today asking what paid leave you currently have and whether it's meeting your needs. That process will go until September 14th. After that, various options for paid sick leave models will be prepared, and you can give your feedback on those until October 25th. Currently, around half of all employees in BC don't have access to any kind of paid leave.
We'll announce in the next few days some measures, some additional measures. One of them will be the passport.
As Quebec is facing an increase in COVID-19 cases, Premier François Legault announced Thursday a vaccination passport will be introduced in the province. Proof of COVID-19 vaccination will be mandatory for all non-essential activities in certain high and moderate risk sectors in Quebec to avoid another lockdown. The government to announce details in the coming days.
We'll put in place the passport in order that people who made the efforts to be vaccinated, that they are able to come back to a normal life. So it means that some services will, non-essential services, will be available only to vaccinated people.
Together with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Premier François Legault announced that Quebec is aiming to avoid widespread closures with a vaccine passport system, meaning Quebecers who aren't fully vaccinated may see themselves shut out of places like gyms, theaters, team sports, and other non-essential activities.
It is time that the 80% of Canadians who are doing their duty towards their neighbors, towards their loved ones by getting vaccinated, be able to get back more and more to normal, get back more and more to regular life.
It will allow our non-essential activities to continue and allow people to be able to, live their lives as normally as possible.
France, Italy, and the city of New York already have vaccine passport systems in place. Details of the system, like how it will work and when it will be implemented, will be released soon by Health Minister Christian Dubé. Legault says the rising case numbers in Quebec and the prospect of more hospitalizations and deaths in the coming weeks has made the vaccine passport necessary necessary. But some experts say hospitalizations and deaths might not go up as cases do.
Up until now, when cases went up, hospitalizations and deaths started to rise a few weeks after the fact. The hope is that going forward, because so many people are vaccinated, even if they do get sick, they won't have severe disease, and we'll see a decoupling of those two things.
84.3% of Quebecers have been inoculated with at least one dose, 69.7% having received two. Experts saying that the most effective way to curb the fourth wave remains getting vaccinated.
If we could get the percentage of people vaccinated over 70 and over 80%, we would be in a very, very good position to withstand the fourth wave.
It's about protecting the kids who are under 12, who can't yet get vaccinated, but who desperately want to go back to school in person. It's about protecting educators and parents and frontline workers. It is time for people to get vaccinated.
In Montreal, Sarah Rainville, City News.
And some breaking news from Tokyo, another medal for Team Canada, as Richmond, BC's Evan Dunphy has captured a bronze medal in the 50-kilometer race walk. It's Canada's first race walking medal in 29 years. Dunphy just missed the podium in the event at the previous Olympics, finishing fourth in Rio. Congratulations, Evan.
I am... Sorry. And women. Men and women. Both. All.
The local film industry is about to get a big boost. The Walt Disney Animation Studio is planning to open an office here in Vancouver early next year. The studio is slated to open in January and will work on projects exclusively for the Disney Plus streaming service, including a musical revisiting of the movie Moana. Colin Giles with the Vancouver Film School says it's big news for Hollywood North.
In some ways it's obvious, and in others it's another example of their belief in Disney Plus, which is obviously driving this decision to continue to produce more content for their streaming service.
It's still not known how many jobs this new studio will create, but there's already a call for expression of interest on the Disney Careers website.
Tax breaks, got a great talent pool, lots of schools around, and that was a similar reason why they came in the first place with Pixar.
More than 100 people were laid off when Disney closed its Pixar Canada animation studio in Vancouver in 2013. In Vancouver, Kimia Shukuhi, City News.
Vancouver's news is always available on the radio with News 1130 or online anytime at citynews1130.com. Your next edition of City News is tonight at 11. Thank you for watching and have a great night.